we are back with the show of Reading Ravens. As you all know, we review a book here by inviting a guest. Today, the book that is being reviewed is Eat That Frog by author Brian Tracy. And we have got a great guest here. The guest is Mr. Smith Shah. Before we move into the show, let me introduce Smith to you. Smith is an engineer in mechanical, and after completing his degree, he found out that the laws of thermodynamics weren't that interesting. So he went on to pursue career in different directions. He participated with Delhi government on projects related to communication. He also went on to pursue a degree in liberal studies from none other than the Ashoka University. And most importantly, he has been a seasoned communicator with clubs like the Toastmaster. So Smith, we are glad to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book? So the first question that comes to my mind, having read the title of book, Eat That Frog. So should vegetarian people shy away from the book?
Okay, first of all, I'm a vegetarian myself, and I can safely assure you there is nothing about eating a frog in this book. So all the vegetarians out there, feel free to pick up this book. Frog here is a metaphor for procrastination. So when the book says eat that frog, in simple words, it is just telling you to accomplish your goal or get rid of the task that you are supposed to do. And frog, because it is an animal that you don't want to eat, it is ugly. This book tells you different ways of how to eat that frog.
Oh, so that's wonderful. The most important air of doubt has been clear that we are not literally going to eat any frog as such. And the book, as you say, it talks about an important issue on that is procrastination. Well, I'm not that well versed with that word. And as we move on to the later part of the show, I'll ask you for the specific meaning. But before that, could you please tell us how did you come across this book?
Sure. So I'm a very simple person. Whenever I have a problem in life, my solution to it is finding a book that helps me solve that problem. So back in 2017, around that time, when I was struggling with getting things done for myself, I was becoming way too lazy, waking up every morning, not doing anything, just going back to sleep. And I realized this is not how it will happen, or my life will not move forward if I just keep on doing this. That's when I searched on the internet, as we all do on Google Baba. I went on that site. I searched for books on procrastination, and I picked up this one because first, the title is very catchy. Second, it's this thin. It's almost 100 pages. So if I'm getting a solution in less than 100 pages, I'll definitely pick this book up. So that's how I came across this book.
Okay, that's nice. So from what we can understand from you is that, as you said, the book is about procrastination and how actually we can improve our working schedule, come out of that laziness and get things working. So even I found out things quite difficult when it comes to time management. But before we move to that, one last point, how about this author Brian Tracy? What kind of stuff he writes on?
Okay, so Brian Tracy is a phenomenal speaker, writer, and a trainer. He has written more than 75 books on different topics, one of them being procrastination. He also writes on goal setting, on sales, on how to overcome your different kinds of fears. So this author trains almost or speaks almost to about 2.5 lakh people every year. And his books have been translated in multiple languages. So they are crossing different boundaries. And one good point about this author, which I definitely recommend everyone, is that he writes in a very practical manner. So if I look at most of the self-help books out there, they tend to be very preachy in certain sense. Okay. And with this book, it's completely opposite. Every chapter in this book is just a practical step. So this is something which is great about the author.
So when I'm given to read some book, like in a library or in my college time, if I see a book more than 200 to 50 pages, I would start to procrastinate reading the book itself.
Sure.
And indeed, procrastination is a big issue. I go to office and we are dealing with software projects and we have deadlines ranging from 3 to 6 months. The features have to be rolled out quickly because once the website is live, the room for errors is very low.
Sure.
Most of the time, what happens in realities, until unless the project enters the second half, we barely tend to recognize like how should we actually plan ourselves. And we were talking about the word procrastination, and I told you like how I face those difficulties. Can you explain a bit more on it?
Sure. So the first time I remember facing procrastination is when I was giving my board exams in class 10. I very vividly remember that it was the Hindi exam, and before that we had 5 days of gap. So day one, I thought there are 5 more days left or 4 more days left. I spent the entire day playing cricket with my friends out there. Then day two came. I thought, okay, there are 3 more days left after this. I spent the entire day playing video games. Then day three came. I spent with my cousins, went out again. Then there were 2 days left. I thought, okay, there are 2 days left. There are about 20 chapters. I can do it. 10 chapters a day is manageable. But then I was so lazy. I slept the entire day. And finally, it was the last day and I had 20 chapters to do. And that gave me panic. I just know how I gave the exam. And not surprisingly, I scored the lowest marks in that exam.
Okay, okay. So all engineers who are attending this meeting live, they can definitely relate to it. How they start studying on the night before the exam, and and how they forget everything once the exam is over.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, you made a right point. How it happened in your exams, and as I was saying, like I face it during office and even in day-to-day life. So I came to know the book gives different rules, different methods, so that we can develop a better habit. So can you start with any rule?
Sure.
Uh,
The first one and the most simplest one, which I'm sure everyone can apply from this moment itself. And that rule is plan your day in advance. For example, tonight, before going to bed, I have my diary with me. I'll write down what are the 10 things or maybe 15 things or 5 things I have to do tomorrow. This is a very simple writing activity that anyone can do and only requires a piece of pen and paper. But what this activity does, it trains your subconscious mind regarding what you have to do tomorrow. So you have the entire night in which you're not actively doing anything, but your subconscious mind is dwelling on it. And by the time you wake up, you already know what you have to do, and the chances of you doing that are more likely. I'll give you my own example. 90% of the times, if I've written something that I have to do, I have more likely to not accomplish it the next day or maybe the day later after that. So writing is a way of instructing yourself that you have to do something. It's like a command that you give to yourself just a day in advance. That's one thing that this book has taught me, and I still follow till today.
that's perfect. Even when I went through books of self-help, and I took advice from senior people, even my own family members. They said like writing down things, it makes it easier. It takes the load off our mind, and it gives it a clear cut signal. Okay, that we have decided now it's going to happen in any case. Exactly. So this is the one great principle that you started with. I hope some of us are taking down notes on it. There are also other principles given here, some other rules like the ABCD method, and maybe a little more. So
Sure.
what do you say?
Sure. So before coming to the ABCD, I'll speak out another rule which this book mentions, and that is called the 80-20 rule. Okay. People who studied business know it as the Pareto principle, which simply states that 80% of the results are because of 20% of the action. So for example, if you have to do 10 tasks tomorrow, out of this, out of those 10, more likely than not, there are 2 tasks which are far more important compared to the other 8. And those 2 tasks will be responsible for 80% of the results that you're going to accomplish in your life. What this book talks about is that pick those 2 tasks and do them first thing in the morning, if possible. So what you do finally is that you're accomplishing something which is giving you the maximum result. For example, let's say you want to be a writer. So first thing in the morning, you wake up, spend 2 hours on writing or laying down that plan, what you have to do. If you push it to later in the day, your productivity will decrease. And also chances are that you might get something else to do, because of which that task will get delayed. So this is something that I've tried to follow, that whenever I have something important to do, I do it first thing in the morning. This book also refers to it as eat the ugliest frog first thing in the day. So the ugliest frog being something that is very difficult, you don't want to do it. You are keep on delaying it again and again. So that is something which the book talks about. The second thing which you rightly mentioned is the ABCDE method, and that is an extension of the principle. So when you write your task, there are 10 tasks that say you have to do. Beside each task, mark them a category. For example, the task which is most urgent and most important should be marked as A category. The task which is slightly less important compared to the other one is a B category, and then so on in C, D, E. So what this also does is, let's say you have a category E task. You may skip it if you want. It's not that necessary. But the category A or B tasks need to be done as soon as possible. So again, this is the practice of prioritizing things. Okay. Uh, it will help you to identify which tasks are more important and which ones can be skipped for later.
Perfect. So, very frankly, I don't feel like sitting. I'm not feeling as if I'm sitting in a meeting room or in a book show. It reminds me more of the times when I tried for admissions to institutes in management, the national reputed brands. And you would see those people coming in fancy dresses in fancy accent, and you would ask me, man, like, what is it that you cracked so that you are moving in a black Lamborghini today? And then they would also give the same to principals, that to crack your time, to crack your schedule, you have to write things down at first, then you have to prioritize them. And as you said, I also suppose like it is not bad to take your fears at the first. Like there's a speech that I came across. It was in a Toastmasters club, and the speaker said the title of his speech was "If you don't push your limits, they start to limit you." So it's not bad we start to take things in those manner. For example, like I am fearful of going to sports or exercise. So what my father says is every morning you do it right away. If you keep it if you keep hanging on the matter, you won't even do it in the evening, and the worst part would be that you won't enjoy things in the middle. So it makes sense, and maybe that is why like great leaders whom we come to know, like be it Gandhiji in that time, or our business leaders of today, they always try to get up early. Like they say, like they take 2 extra hours in the morning. I read this about leaders like Zuckerberg, I think, Elon Musk. They wake up at 4 5 a.m. and like by 6 they have those 2 extra hours. So they try to write everything down, take the most important decisions at time, like going through project reports or communicating with some special people, and they plan things that way. So it then the part of execution comes rather easier.
Sure,
So
sure.
I
Now
think I
that
have
you,
given,
yeah,
yeah.
now that you mentioned Mark Zuckerberg, let me also tell you, since we are doing this on Mr. Mark Zuckerberg's platform, and definitely it's a good platform that people should use. But what I've learned from this book definitely is that technology is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Okay? So while we do enjoy spending time on Facebook, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, if we let those apps control us, for example, if I'm on Instagram, if I start watching a reel, I start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and suddenly 30 minutes are gone, and I've spent my entire day doing nothing.
बिल्कुल.
So we should try and limit these technologies controlling us, rather what we should do is use this technology, have maybe 10-15 minutes maximum you can dedicate to recharging yourself or refreshing your mind. But more than that, just try to limit yourself. The other thing which the book talks about is that if you use technology as a servant, for example, I have to wake up, I'm setting an alarm, technology is helping me getting up. If I have to go from place A to place B, I'm using, let's say, some kind of maps. And that is helping me. Technology is helping me. It is serving me here. So if we use technology in a manner that is serving us, it's great. But the moment we let technology become our masters, that's when we lose our own productivity as well.
Absolutely. That's such a valid point. I mean, it is so relevant in today's era because the lives have moved on quite fast. Things are moving at a rock solid speed, and the decision making, the priority setting, uh, it has become as important as it was never before. So certainly, even I've come across moment like I would think either I take attend this meeting or I read this book or I meet someone. So it is important to like manage those dilemmas. So Smith, we have been going through a great session, and there have lots of important principles have come out, and I've taken some of the notes already. And with this, I will tell you like we are into the final leg of the session. If you were to give some message, or I would be winding it up.
Sure. So there's one final message that I definitely like to deliver, and I'll use a cricketing analogy here. The book talks about taking this one oil barrel at a time. I'll not go into what an oil barrel and why you should take it one at a time, but I'll take a cricketing analogy. Let's say you have to score 200 in 20 overs, right? 200 is a very big task, and we definitely require Virat Kohli and Surya Kumar Yadav to chase those numbers. But what you and I can do is not look at the 200, break it down per over. How much do I need? 10 runs and over. Okay, I can manage that. I'll score a few doubles here, hit a boundary. I can manage 10. Again, the next over comes. Again, I'll look at 10, not 200. What this does is, while 200 seems a daunting number, 10 is a relatively smaller number, and it tells us what we can do in the present to achieve our larger goal. So if we break down our goals into simpler parts, for example, let's say you want to lose 5 kilos. Losing 5 kilos is a very big task. But if I say, let's say you have to lose half a kilo every week, that's the only thing you should focus on. Don't focus on losing 5 kilos. What we have done is we've broken down the task into simpler parts. And while half a kilo is simply manageable, you still believe that you can do it. And once you believe you can do it, you are more actively pursuing that goal. If I had to give one lesson to people, maybe that would be that break down your goals into different parts. Try to see how you can achieve those parts in the present, not in the future, in the present, and do whatever you can. That's the one thing.
That's wonderful. So the lesson for all of us that comes up is that it's all about time management. We can also stop procrastinating. It's about following certain principles. Like we came across the ABCD method of prioritizing. Came across the 80-20 rule, identifying the importance of tasks. And lastly, as the guest rightly wound up, the we should break tasks into smaller parts rather than worrying for such a large, complicated picture. With that, fellow Smith, very glad to have you here, Smith, and members of HYS and people attending the session from outside. We are quite happy to resume with the edition, with the 21st edition of our popular show, Reading Ravens. Today, we reviewed the book Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I'm sure you liked the session. And please don't worry, Eat That Frog has nothing to do with non-vegetarian stuff. With that, I will close up on the show. Meet you in the next session of Reading Ravens. Stay tuned to the updates from Have Your Say Club. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you for joining.